What's up? It's Rob Dyrdek, former professional skateboarder, host of MTV's Ridiculousness, and CEO of the Dyrdek Machine here on the Game Plan.
All right, today we've got a really special guest, entrepreneur, serial founder, actor, producer, TV host, former professional skateboarder, but still a better skateboarder than any of our listeners. He's a podcast host. Rob Dyrdek, welcome to the Game Plan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I want to take it back a minute because the Game Plan is all about featuring either current or former pro athletes and talking about what they're doing off the court or off the pavement. Do you think people really realize what an incredible skater you actually were?
Well, here, look, that's extraordinarily flattering, but I like to say that I made the most money in skateboarding history per trick landed. Because I wasn't that good of a skateboarder. I was an amazing marketer and idea and creator and businessman from a very young age that allowed me to make someone like you who like did an internet should be like, man, he was a legit pro skater. But I legitimately landed 4 or 5 solid tricks in my entire career. Never got past like 8th place in a contest. So I am in fact not a champion. I've always been a business guy.
Well, fair enough. Not to take that too far, but there's some similarities to where esports is at now because you have people going into it professionally, but where there's a lot of money actually being made is through the streaming and through the sponsorship side, not so much the competitive side.
Yeah, and I mean, look, when I turned pro in my first year as a professional skateboarder in November of, I believe, 1991, I sold 1 board. I got a royalty check for $2, right? I cashed that royalty check into quarters and went to a soda machine, or pop as I called it in Ohio, and went and got myself 8 pops. You know what I mean? Like today, kids make millions of dollars riding a skateboard, right? So, the same way that today in esports, there's a lot of different opportunities where that you can make money, but there's still, these kids that are grinding it out that'll never make any money playing video games, and then guys that are making millions. But 15 years ago, that was unheard of, right? The same way when I turned pro in 91, it was like the days of Tony Hawk and people making money was left in the 80s. And now pros made I was guaranteed $1,000 a month for me to move from Ohio to California. And I thought I hit the lottery. I'm like, what? Jumped in the Civic, and I was in Cali like a week later, rich.
Hearing Tim talk about sort of all of the careers and lives that you've had, it's we love talking about the multi-hyphenates on this show, all the different things that folks do after their athletic career. But tell us, was this something that you had really planned out, where you said, here's going to be the media Rob, here's going to be the entrepreneur and investor Rob, or is it something that you just left yourself open to opportunities as they came through and tried them out, see how they fit?
Well, the through line is, I grew up around serial entrepreneurs, right? So, I called the local skate shop and asked, who had a mini ramp, and asked if I got 10 people to pay to skate, could I skate for free? Because I didn't have any money. That they thought that was funny. Said, why don't you just come down here? And that's when I befriended Jimmy George, a 19-year-old serial entrepreneur who's not only owned a couple different companies, but owned that skate shop. But it began to open my 11-year-old eyes to like owning companies. And then I watched his friends and the groups around him start company after company. So I just thought it was my destiny to be a business mind and create companies. And that's why I built my first like skateboard truck company at 17 years old, right when I moved to California, because it was always part of it. So then now you fast forward of sort of how I approached my career and how I looked at myself, not as a brand, because that language didn't exist back then, but I looked at myself as a business. And so I just started on this journey of constantly learning what I'd consider creative deal making, and then seeing opportunity and maximizing it, right? And that happened over and over of what I was able to do with my career, which led to multiple different businesses that led to DC shoes, and then having all this signature footwear, and kind of the evolution of skateboarding and skateboarding media, and then wrote an idea for a skateboard video that turned into a television show. Now I have this new platform, right? Then I realized the power of media rights for my second show. I said I'd only do it if I own the media rights, right? So now I own the platform, the media, and made millions and millions and sold off that. Then I realized, what can I do with that? I can monetize the entire media platform, but do it way easier from a studio instead of driving around doing crazy stunts, which led to sort of ridiculousness, right? That's in that whole pathway was always business first, and then how do you maximize your opportunities as they're presented to you, you know?
Yeah, I've heard you actually say this before, that you've said, I need to own a significant portion of the business to keep me excited. And I have my own theories on why we're seeing this shift from celebrity investors into this whole new blend of, talent co-founders and co-owners. But help me understand, like, was there a specific point in time where ownership became that important to you, and I guess how you shifted your business model around gaining ownership in the businesses that you're a part of?
Well, let me say the transition that I made, right? Number one, every business that I ever started worked, right? Until I started a record label, right? And I didn't understand why that didn't work, right? It was like, wow, that's weird, right? Everything I do works. And this means a lot of different things, right? It used to be always cash, right? I really looked at how much money could I make off it. I used to just do royalty deals for everything. All the companies that I'd create, I'd do it for a percentage of sales, right? I thought that was amazing till I began to learn you're creating value for other people's equity, right? And so having significant stake was part of my life. It was only when up until, I'd never even heard of what an investment banker was until I was 35 years old. Up to that point, I had made millions and lost millions financing and doing everything myself. I never had an investor, right? I built every single business myself. And when I met this investment banker, and when he explained to me that, hey, your league, right? Because at this point I had built and launched the world's first professional skateboarding league. And they were like, hey, this thing's worth like $30 million. And I'm like, well, how is this? We did 7 million in revenue. Like, how is it worth 30 million? When he tried to explain to me trade value, I had no even concept. It was funny to me at the audacity that, like, how would a business be worth like 4 times revenue? Right. So that evolution now started my true business mind of beginning to really understand what I was doing on a deeper business level, of how I was creating value, and what who I was creating value for, and what that could be for me, right? So now you fast forward to making different types of investments, and kind of this evolution of like, oh, you're going to give me advisor shares because I'm on TV, and I'm going to give you 50 grand, you know what I mean? That sort of world. And as I really learned, like where basically all of capital staging, right? And understanding like where your equity goes to if you decide to dance with the devil in the venture world, versus and it depends on what you build. Some things I build for equity exit, some things I build for cash flow. That's the beauty of like my structure of being the person that co-finds everything, funds everything through development. Then depending on the type of business, do I raise capital. So fast forward to now, I'm launching this venture studio, and it was in the beginning of like, oh, it's still early enough, but they've raised some money. Like, oh, I can put in some money and own 10% of this, which is way more than, putting 50 grand and getting a few advisor shares at a $50 million round, right? Of some tech idea. And in that stage, I realized, that it's like, man, like I don't even like it if I'm not a co-founder. If it's not me and a person talking about an idea, then let me fund now the development of that. Then let me decide, do I want to fund like part of the growth round, the actual seed round, instead of the angel round? and do I want to do the part of the A round? But the beauty of it is I actually control all equity from the very beginning with my co-founding partner, right? So it's common shares when we're co-founders, then it's preferred when I invest. We pick a valuation, then we set the valuation in that first sort of round. I know I just went on a deep tangent to this idea of equity, and it's extraordinary when you sell a business and own 70%. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary when you go along with a ride with an operator and help guide them, and they sell it for 160 million and you own 15% after dilution, right? It's like extraordinary, right? So to me, it really ends up being this, you're managing it like any other asset class, right? And it's the only thing that I have to evaluate is I have a staff of people that is part of my core cost structure and my sweat equity. But at the end of the day, I'm still looking at, like, I put in 250, 500, $1 million, and what is my return, both from an ROI and an IRR standpoint, right? Extraordinarily sophisticated way to look at business that's not common in athletes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's more the way that and again, I only learned all of this, in the last 6-7 years, right? I never even heard of venture, didn't know what it was 7 years ago. Certainly never had a partner and thought an investment banker was a premium, like someone at like B of A who dealt with high net worth individuals. That's what I thought.
Can we talk about that for a second, Rob? So I appreciate all that, because my story, while not similar in the fact of, being a professional at something, I came from Wisconsin and Michigan, small liberal arts school, to moving to New York. And I remember like this first dinner with friends, and it's like, and I knew one person when I moved here, but it was like everyone going around the table and like, I work in finance, I work at this. I'm like, I don't even know what finance is. Like, I literally was like, granted, I didn't say that, but fast forward 12 years later, and now I'm an investor. I work in venture capital and like all these other terms that stigmatize our industry. And I think it's good that those are starting to be broken down. But another piece of the puzzle there on my path was I ran a venture studio with the LA Dodgers, and we had our own method of sourcing companies and what it meant to be a value add partner and what our makeup was in terms of equity pool and our role in all that. I'd love to understand with the Dyrdek Machine how you really go from idea to company formation. Like, take us in on that very early days of the companies you're backing and being a part of.
So let me lay out, first I'm looking for the same mindset as me, right? I call it do or die. It's the grit, fortitude, determination, ambition. Like, you have the engine, but it's relentless work ethic and unwavering self-belief, right? It's like that unwavering self-belief is like at the core of like, I can ride with this person, right? And the work ethic, they're going to stop at nothing to achieve it. Then I go for, give me a solopreneur, right? Like, give me somebody that is has an idea, right? And then give me a founder market fit, right? So that like, this is somebody that is seeing an opportunity based off of the experience from a place that they've operated at. Then give me somebody that sees business multidimensionally through what I call the 7 core capabilities of business. You understand brand, product, media, marketing, sales, operations, and finance, right? Together, this makes the engine of any successful business, and the best founders have general knowledge in all of it, right? That way they can hire the right people to deliver on that. And more than anything, I hope that this is your magnum opus, right? This is sort of like your life has culminated, and experience has culminated to this idea. Let's go create that idea, right? And how do I find those people, right? And it's usually through conversations, meeting, and then just saying, hey, if you have an idea, this is how our team works, and the resources that we add and help you shape this idea and essentially act as your co-founding team to lead you to market, to where then, and help you hire all the people to go to market. And then we'll fight like dogs together to find product market fit, so we know we can go and make a real business here. In the case of something like MindRight that I just launched, right? Chris Bernard was the CEO of another CPG business, and he had made this incredible product, man, that I wanted to like pull out, and like I had a full vision for this product that he made. Bought the website, bought the name. I was like, oh, this is like, but couldn't get him across the line because he didn't own the company. He was a CEO and investor. But I said, look, this is how we think, if you have an idea, bring it to us, and we walked through our principles, right? You're the do or die leader, like give me white space that, and I don't care where the white space comes from. It can be a defendable product. It can be a unique value proposition from a marketing standpoint, but like some sort of clear, like defined unique value proposition that talks to a clear consumer, clear path to liquidity. I don't care if it's, I got businesses that do $2.5 million in revenue and kick off $1 million that we split, right? Like, I don't care how big it is if we can get to a dividend, or a high growth market that has, activity in it. Give me unfair advantages that lead to revenue. I don't need unfair advantages of like, celebrity and this, and I need like something that's going to drive revenue. Is sort of like when I really look at the opportunity. And then, I used to say, would I be proud if it fails? But, I only want to do something but even if this thing doesn't work, would I be psyched that we did it? Now I call it make an impact, it's a real business. So the great Chris Bernard, came to me and said, and walked me through this entire sort of opportunity of like, look at what happened with better for you foods and sort of the evolution of sugar-free, fat-free, then the functional and probiotics and collagen and now functional. And now it's gone into super clean and functional and vegan and gluten-free and low sugar and protein and fiber. And look what's happening in the nootropics and adaptogen supplement space, where all of this is emerging and nobody has put them together to create a consumables brand, right? That is when it's like, ooh, this is something real here, right? And then I go on a discovery phase, right? I go do deep immersions into both the adaptogen and nootropic supplement space and the functional food space, so that I have complete and total clarity on how to begin to shape the opportunity, or at least through this phase, land on an opportunity hypothesis of like why I would even invest capital. All of that pans out. Now we do a deal, right? And that deal is predicated on common shares that we're co-founders, and then our initial capital based off of, we do all the modeling to basically do the initial capital staging before what we think it'll cost to develop it and what we think it'll cost to go to market. In this case, it was, $250,000 to develop, 1.7 to go to market, right? We did all this financial work. Then we negotiate on our price of our 250 on that first preferred round to basically round out a whole number of what our partnership is, based off of our target of what that first round of capital will be. So we know exactly what we end up as partners from an equity position, and then we put a target on it, right? Yep. And as you guys know, and I'm long-winded and sophisticated, but I know you guys can handle this.
Rob, we wouldn't have you on the show if we didn't want to hear you talk.
Look, and then we target a price, right? Because at the end of the day, like you can sell, there's 2,000 people that'll buy your company for 75 to 150 million. There are like 30 people that'll buy it 150 to like 250. And then there's like 4 on anything above that, or you're going public, right? So even your, a lot of people don't know that, like, man, you dance with the devil at scale. Like, if you got to start taking on these big capital, if you choose to take on a big $50 million round in a consumer good, like you're in trouble, because now, like, you're
absolutely.
No, let's
So,
Jay,
let's
Jay,
let's get
Jay,
into that page.
Jay, you've got a big opinion on this. I know.
Yeah,
I do, especially because I think as we're looking at a lot of consumer products that are being formed, and Tim and I talk about this a lot because, you know, before we hopped on the mic, Rob, we were talking about celebrity and athlete co-founded brands, and you're starting to see that a lot in, you know, a lot of D2C, traditionally D2C categories. I would love to understand your perspective, whether D2C is still like a category, is it still just an go to market channel? Like, what is it, and how do you think about it? Because you're doing a lot of consumer products. Some of them have celebrity and talent involved, and typically speaking, when somebody sees it on the shelf and they say, oh, that's George Clooney's thing, or that's, you know, Rihanna's thing, I want to get around it. How do you think about the go to market for the products that you're launching through Dyrdek Machine?
Look, to me, it's channel market fit, right? It's like, man, you not everything is meant for D2C. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just, and it's not disruptive anymore. And it's like, you have to look at your business as omni-channel, because even the great D2C brands have to scale into omni-channel. It's not like you're just going to like, you can be a solid performing, profitable business that in an example of a product that has big shelf stability, has a high consumption rate, right? Has all these sort of things that like clear value prop that creates customer loyalty, where you're just retargeting rather than acquiring customers, right? It's like and we'll look at two extremes. You know, the direct-to-consumer betting one is an example of like their customer acquisition costs turn to like $2,000 a customer, right? And their lifetime value is like one purchase, because you're going to buy one bet, right? You know, and every time I even look at these individual companies, I look at them through that lens, right? I look at, okay, when you're selling Mind Dry Good Mood superfood bars at $32 a case, direct to consumer, you got shelf stability issues, you've got shipping cost issues, you've got purchase behavior issues. You're used to buying a bar at the convenient as an impulse purchase, right? So now it's this sort of problematic, but if you get somebody, they love the taste of it and really connect with it, their lifetime value and your retargeting becomes much more valuable in there, right? Luso Cloud, our slipper brand, right? We looked at a super simple way of looking at a business. Like, Uggs is 1.6 billion, Crocs is 1 billion, Birkenstocks is 800 million, $3.6 billion in revenue. We can make a better version of an ugly comfort footwear and take market share, right? And we still went out at a direct-to-consumer play and built in a massive margin, and then went for not paid advertising, but had a deep cap table of influencers that influence the influencers, that then allowed us to get an immense amount of earned media, where our customer acquisition cost ends up being, you know, the cost of our footwear and shipping, right? So it is never, it's not like the channel's dry, right? Like, but 9 times out of 10, you're not going to like launch a direct to consumer business. You're never going to get a ROAS, right? That's going to matter, right? But unless it's still possible, I see it happen from time to time, but it's so product based and consumer based. When you have such a clear value proposition that's targeted at such a clear audience and consumer, like, then the conversion's just different, right? And it lends itself to the pricing strategy. So I think it's hard. I don't believe there's big scale in direct to consumer. It's the right place to launch. And if you have a great balance and your customer acquisition price isn't too high, you now have a lot of extra money in margin that essentially is creating more advertising for someone to impulse purchase it at the mall if you have omni-channel distribution.
I think that's a fantastic point, which is that you can use it as a channel to hook somebody, but then you still have to have the other pieces. And I've said this on the show before, where like my 3 criteria with a consumer product is a hook, a habit, and a flywheel. So the hook is, okay, I'm going to try it out. the habit is I'm going to use it every day, or I'm going to buy it on a regular cadence. And the flywheel is I want, one purchase, I'm going to invite at least 5 other friends to check it out for some other reason. And I feel like a lot of folks, whether it's celebrity, whether they're going D2C, they focus a lot on the hook. And then like with betting, right? Where's the habit? I sleep on it every day, but I buy it once every 10 years. Where's the flywheel? Do I really go out and talk about it? And I think a lot of founders, even athletes, miss that piece of it, which is, I want to be in skincare. Okay, but do you have a hook, a habit, and a flywheel?
And look, I love it. I think I think you need to be as disciplined on that as possible, right? Because it's just the reality of, I call it irresistibly shareable. Why do you feel compelled to share somebody about this concept, this product, this idea, right? And easier said than done, but again, it's still multidimensionally. Even if you have all 3, if you don't have an extraordinary operator, if you don't have somebody running it that understands the financial side of the business as it relates to how it can impact the brand and product strategy side, right? It's like it's that aspect of business that even when you have really strong concepts, can't get the right momentum because it's ran by someone with the wrong amount of experience, right? And I think that's the Achilles heel of the celebrity brand, is that they are, the partners that they traditionally are partnered with aren't as strong because they demand a lot of equity as celebrity, right? And their earned media and who they are is this value. And really sophisticated operators know that celebrity is simply just a little bit of gas of earned media. There's not actually there's not conversion with celebrity, right? And I'm not trying to bum you out, Jay. I'm not trying to bum you out.
I want to hear it, Rob. I want to hear it.
I'm saying you're, even us in the case of Mind Right, we got Joe Jonas, Travis Barker, Marcus Lemonis. I get thrown in there, right? Celebrity investor. But I know that it's all that is a little bit of earned media that gets retailers to notice, might drive press awareness that gets people to discover it, creates bubble, but there's very little conversion as it relates to the power of celebrity, even at scale, right? And I think the Kardashians are a great example of some things that bang and some things that don't. It's like when you look at Kylie's skin stuff, it's like an amazing operator that then used her earned media, which had a core direct consumer that it was all one for one, right? If she would have done that same amount of earned media and drive of the products, and that operator could not fulfill what it took to actually deliver on that and get that to retail and have the side of the business, that thing could have just as easily just been a struggling $20-30 million business that was successful versus a $200 million business that could come in and get an acquisition from Cody or whoever did it, right? A sophisticated player at scale in it, right? And I think you look at the history of, and I struggle with it because even over on my side, the venture world and all the people are oh, you're, while I was transitioning to a branded house of brands, they're oh, no, you're the brand. And I'm no, I'm not the brand. My philosophy and mastery of brand creation is the brand, right? And so that's why I don't try to go to market for mine. I built this incredible brand with an A+ operator through my process that allowed me to learn to shape businesses in this super dynamic way that allowed me to go get Joe Jonas and Travis Barker and Chris Harder and all these different people that have influence to come in and invest capital. No institutional capital, no family office capital, right? This is all strategic in the A round, right? Which is so much more important because you're just trying to get the thing off the ground. So if everyone on that cap table comes with earned media, then you're getting an unfair advantage that leads to revenue, right? Like rather than just having money to have money, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Rob, I actually want to dig in on that specifically with MindRight. I'll make one quick correction because it's becoming very clear to me that you're not actually a celebrity investor. You're an investor who happens to be a celebrity, based on how
Hey,
you
let me
talk.
say that. Hey, before you go, don't forget that I'm built and sold a production company that produces my television show, and I still have to shoot 250 episodes of television a year on the side.
Yeah, well, I
You know
wasn't
what I
gonna
mean?
I wasn't gonna bring up the fact that you were recently trending on Twitter, and it was because every single programming show on MTV that day was ridiculousness.
Hey, and look, I also track my time, right? I have these beautiful dashboards that show me where I spend all my time. I track every single time. It's all automated to pump out, right? I designed this super balanced life. And even shooting that much television, it takes up like 5% of my total time, right? Like of work, not life, just work, which is 30%. I work 30% of my life, right? To give you context of how
That's
many
awesome.
layers there are
Yeah, and so
beyond the investor, you know what I'm saying?
I want to bring it back to MindRight because this also ties to the question I was asking earlier about like the very genesis of the company or the idea. And you mentioned Chris Bernard, who's your co-founder on MindRight or founder of MindRight, and how he brought this kind of earned insight, right? He had some insight from being in CPG that he brought to the table about bringing new products to market. But one thing I didn't hear you say about these celebrity-backed brands is how do those people with earned insights, with operational chops, how do they get access to celebrities like you? And how do they possibly vet who's real as a celebrity investor and like start to build trust and all of that? Because there's this whole other level, this whole other barrier they have to break through that even if they have the greatest insight in the world, they've got to find a way to get your attention.
Yeah, and look, I think it's different from me because I'm a builder, right? So it's like when I think of like how I'm creating everything, what I hope to gain by being on this podcast, like I'm just looking for other elite operator CEOs with founder market fit and see an opportunity, and they hear me speak and are like, I want to build with it, right? So that's all I'm looking for in all bit of media that I'm doing as it relates to business. So now when you spin that to like, okay, I'm an operator with this insight and idea, how do I have access? And let me say, furthermore, part of my value add is I'm going to help you shape this into an extraordinary business and be your Sherpa to through the valley of death, the product market fit. But I'm also part of our value add is we're going to get this in front of those celebrities, and they're going to be investors, right? And they're going to believe in how I create and what our system is. Then when their financial advisors look at our strategy and plan and how we look at return, our return profile that we hope to deliver them, it is a much more sophisticated way of looking at it, even for them, right? It's because the problem with the celebrity, they're only as sophisticated as their advisors, right? You're not going this level of talk that I've grown into is a seasoned 46-year-old lifetime serial entrepreneur that then chose mastery to learn all of this at a very deep level, and someone that just went on to master money as a whole, right? And so it's a harder example. So for them now, you're caught. You're hoping to get lucky. You're hoping, like, you're trying to connect with an idea. You're not going to, like, is this guy a multi-dimensional CEO? You're not going to get there. And then you're going off vibe. You're going off their previous experience, right? Because, a lot of times operators, and I've been through and seen it a million times, where there's people with great infrastructure, the ability to make almost anything, that present an idea and like, all I need is a celebrity, and that celebrity will be able to make this a great business. They 50-50 partners. You got the operator that has a $200 million business, manufacturing, sales, everything already covered. You got this big celebrity, and it's still the product differentiation in the marketplace just isn't strong enough for that earned media to make any impact on what that product is. It always goes back to the product, right? And then how is it being ran, and what is the strategy? Then celebrity is just a little bit of fuel to the overall thing, because there is no, you can't, Honest Co, it wasn't Jessica Alba was so big that, just, for, not debating the current status of Honest Co, but Honest Co legitimately was, close to $1 billion business. And it wasn't because Jessica Alba's celebrity. It was the right idea at the right time through the right channel with the right operators is how that happened, right? But there's this mistake of thinking that there was somehow anything other than she provided this allure to it for the buyers at big box retail to want to take a shot. Then it was easy to build content around her because it really mattered. It was like actually needed in the marketplace. And as a mother and wanting these cleaner products, all of it made sense for both the market, the earned media that she could get, and then the channel of distribution, right? All product timing and market timing, like that to me is the thing that is most overlooked, and the thing that is also part of what I consider my personal mastery, which is the curation of individuals and ideas, and then validating their sort of timing and opportunity. Because so many times I've taken the shot and it would look like the perfect timing and it didn't work. Other times it was like, this feels like right timing. Oh, we got $100 million business now, right? Like,
that's what I was getting at with how operators find celebrities, because too often the middlemen all come in, and it's like, no, you're ruining the purity of the idea and the opportunity.
And look, I think it's the age-old difficulty, because it is the celebrity also doesn't know, right? It's like these, obviously the Jonas Brothers, man, these dudes are gnarly. Like they do. Like I can't think of the name offhand, but they did 8 million and did every round. Did like 200 in the C, like 1 million in the A, like 2 million in the B. Like they were like their team is like, we want to do every round all the way through type of thing, right? Which is a super, and again, that's what you want. You want somebody at that level that understands that that's going to be driving and pushing and going at that scale. And you can only get that if you're built that way too, right? Like in the sense of how you speak to their teams and ultimately laying out the vision for the return that you guys expect to get over the next few years, and that's I just think that's, since I live on both sides, like I always look at celebrity as nothing more than an opportunity for some earned media. And
I agree 100%.
And it's still product and timing and operator over everything. And then it's a nice cherry on top, but without, a company would still win without the celebrity is what it has to be.
Yeah.
Right?
My old boss called it the leaky bucket. He said that you can fill it on top with as many leads as possible, or as many customers that check out your post as possible. But if the bucket is leaky, to your point that you were making when we were doing recording the show, it doesn't lead to conversion. It leads to top of the funnel, not bottom of the funnel. And that leaky bucket still has to be plugged. Yeah. Somebody's got to work on that piece of it, and then that's the founder market fit. So no, we're 100% aligned on that. Tim and I talk about this. It's like the operator's got to be good, and then I get you in front of 2 million people. You got to know what to be able to do with it. Let's talk about the ones that haven't worked, because I think part of being a venture studio is experimentation. Part of experimentation is failure. And I've heard you say that you kind of live with a lack of memory, which means that you get to sort of power through the failures that you're seeing. And that's common. Tim and I as venture capitalists, we know we're going to have a loss ratio. This business doesn't work without the loss ratio and the power law, the one that returns the other 10 failures.
Not me.
How does that work with exactly. How does that work with the venture studio? Because you can't really afford to have products that you invest in that don't fail.
But again, why, and even why I call myself a venture creation studio. But look, 15 companies, 5 exits, no pure L's yet, right? And to me, like, it is so clear, like the ones that are not as strong as the ones that are, it is as clear as day, right? And even the lessons that I've learned in each one of those, you just get better and better. Since I'm building from the idea stage, I'm doing all of my pre-pivoting and chaos of what most people would do in the first year, in the first month, like 8 months before we get to market. I do so much shaping and failing before ever getting to market. And then, as I mentioned earlier, now I only build with platforms, right? MindRight's a platform. Luso Cloud's a platform, right? And by platform, it is a value proposition that can be multiple different products, uncorrelated products. And then I develop 2 product pivots, pre-pivots before we go to market. Because, hey, we did all this testing. We're prepared. We think this is the right strategy, but you don't know till you get out there. And in the case of MindRight, we looked at the bar space as like, okay, most competitive, but largest and easiest to convert. Don't have to convince anybody what it is. It's a consumable. You win off taste. If you can add all this value prop of gluten-free and vegan and high in fiber and high in protein and have these adaptogens and nootropics and enhance your mood, but it's cleaner and tastes better than an RX bar, now you're going to create loyalty and win. But we developed a ready-to-drink mix, right? We developed a salty snack pop chip ready to go if the bar doesn't work, right? In the case of Luso Cloud, we looked at the cost sort of pricing strategy of Uggs, right? A premium Ugg. And we followed that line, $135 a slipper, but was like, hey, if what we have fully developed is a fully EVA $65 one, just like a Croc, and a $90 one that doesn't have the same comfort technology that we apply to the 100 developed in market, launched. I'm like, I hope it works. It all said it's going to work. I don't know, but and again, that's mastery now, right? Now everything you build is founder market fit, experts in footwear, experts in CPG, better for you products, like that have the experience. You now look at business multidimensionally. You help them develop it multidimensionally. Your process is testing and shaping. So by the time you get to market, you have plenty of capital, plenty of earned media, and a real shot to find product market fit. But you have a pre-designed backup plan just in case, right? And I did that, and I learned that, and this is kind of how my podcast is these lessons that I learned are what I share in my podcast. And that lesson was where, we launched Outstanding Foods and developed the brown pig out chips, right? It was a pigless bacon chip, straight NBD, delicious, 225-year vegans riding the beginning of this plant-based wave. Got to market to just like everybody loved it. Got to market and got jammed in the supply chain. Importing unami mushrooms, like trying to have a co-packer to try to do a process that is new to them, that's not on their lines, and buying machinery and trying to get them to be consistent. Like, he came to a crossroad of like, where it's like, there's so much problematic issues, and he had already developed a pigless pork rind and just was like switched on a dime and put it into production. And the company's worth, just closed a $10 million round at $100 million valuation a year later, when it was on the brink of running out of capital and not even being able to bring the product to market, and he might even be able to get the product to market that had already sold in, right? And it was the most insane thing by what I consider my finest CEO, do or die partner, because he is the only person in my portfolio that sees business multidimensionally and has skills in all 7 core capabilities. He's a master, right? You can only do that when that type of stuff only happens to that type of mind, right? But what a lesson. What a lesson.
That's
so
fantastic.
what am I
Yeah.
doing now? I bake those in, right? And I say, hey, I think this is amazing. Like, but I don't know until you get it out. And then, you know, I always, when you launch these brands and then, you know, people start, especially direct to consumer, and you start converting in day one on all this earned media, I feel like I hit the lottery. It's like, I can't believe it worked. and I have also found you could work through my entire portfolio. And when they worked on day one, they either sold or they're massive now. If they struggled in that first 6 months, they're struggling to this day. There's no, like, there's much allure of where you just keep fighting it out and grind it out to figure it out. And I'm not saying like that doesn't exist, but boy, oh boy, is it like the what that business actually stands for and its core value to the consumer should be very clear day one. And if it's not, like, if you can't convert people through a launch and earned media, you're going to be that same way all the way through. And it's painful.
Well, Rob, you've been so generous with your time and wisdom here. So we'll just end on one question. I know we're bumping up against the top of the hour. What's a piece of advice that you'd give your younger self?
Respect money and choose money as your mastery, right? Like understand money. Like it's the, you know, from being a very driven, business-minded young man that left high school at 16 and became a pro skateboarder, like I never learned how money worked. I didn't fully understand taxes. I didn't understand return on investment. I didn't understand IRR. I didn't understand compounding. All of these sort of fundamental aspects of money, I had to learn through losing a lot of money. And I just think anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur, like, learn everything you can about money, because at the end of the day, you've got to like create all your strategies, your visions, and your dreams that lead back to a financial strategy that actually makes your opportunity both viable, sustainable, and enjoyable through its financial potential. So learn the money, kids.
Yeah. Well, that
Don't
ties
hire
in
an
with your
advisor.
that ties in with your idea of starting with the end in mind, right? What is that you want to achieve? Work backwards. If the end is you want to have a successful exit, you want to make that money, you got to learn what that money actually means and how to make it. So, Rob, we're so grateful for your time. We're so grateful for your advice. I'm sure we're going to have lots of deals that we can share together, given our areas of interest. And we're just so thankful that you joined us today on The Game Plan.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. I really, really enjoyed it, and I look forward to our first deal together.
Absolutely.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Rob.